myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. It feels alright.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Sunday morning, it's the professionals with me, Stu and Mitch. Mitch is just having a few technical issues, hence the late start. He's just trying to sort his headset out, so we'll bring him in when he's ready. Morning, Stu. What a result, 5-1. Newcastle beating Brentford, and great to see Newcastle scoring 9 goals in 2 games.
Yeah, as I said to you last night, there was no need for the 4th and 5th goal, was there? They should have just left it at 3-1. Would have made a lot of people happy. Even Alan Shearer we 3-1 yesterday, so that made my day. I just thought, right, that's it. The big man's given me his endorsement, and we should have just left it at 3-1. But joking aside, they were fantastic, weren't they? And everyone is talking about Bruno, and rightly so. And I've said on many occasions, and to reply to a tweet that Steve Hasty put on last night, I genuinely think he's the best midfielder we've had since Gaza, and with the potential to surpass him. I think because he'll stay longer as well, we'll get to see the best of Bruno. And if we get the best of Bruno, Botman was immense again. He's foot faultless, isn't he? He's amazing. Wins everything. He's composed on the ball. And these type of players now are what I talked about on Wednesday. The club, I believe, will just look to add this type of quality to the squad now, to the first team. And it's just so exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Morning, Mitch.
Morning. How's my son now?
It's a bit better, mate. A bit better. Good performance yesterday, mate. Just said to Stu, great to see Newcastle again. In and amongst the goals, and a 5-1 win against the Brentford team. It has to be said. And I mean, when you look at the stats, came to give us a game. They didn't sit back. They scored early, disallowed for VAR decision, of course. But possession, 46% possession. Brentford had. They had a lot of the ball. Didn't do a great deal with it. I think the true stats really are that Newcastle had 16 shots, 6 on target. Brentford 6, 3 on target. Passes pretty equal, 389 to 320. It's the high press though that Newcastle are becoming very good at, Mitch. That is what is ultimately being Eddie Howe's game plan, I think, throughout the season. Match of the day highlighted last night, the intensity, and they're getting a lot of high turnovers. 94, Newcastle leading the way on high turnovers, and that's ending with 17 shots in turnovers for Newcastle. And I mean, not often with talk stats on here, but looking at those stats, Eddie Howe's getting the best out of his bunch at the minute, and Bruno's the key to that.
Well, it forces mistakes. And you could say that we forced 3 mistakes into goals yesterday. I don't think Brentford were worth a 5-1 thumping yesterday. They're a better team than that. But we made them look poor. And so that for me is the big thing on that high turnover. It's something we don't talk about enough in football. I know in American football, often they say turnovers change the game, and turnovers will dictate who wins the game. And I think more and more, if we're winning turnovers like that in dangerous parts of the pitch, like I say, yesterday it led to 3 goals. And the intensity is huge. And the fitness. Like Shearer commented on how fit everybody looked on Twitter last night. And I think that's really, really important to note that one of the big things that Howe said, one of the first things he did when he came in was look at the fitness of the team, and there were something like it's 70% of where he wants to be. Right, it was grim anyway in terms of fitness levels, and now you see people busting a gut. And I think the other thing that encouraged me yesterday is not just the goals, but where the goals came from. We've been talking about wanting to see end product from our wide players, and Almirón, yesterday, both with goals, and both put shifts in. Brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, sounds a bit better, Mitch. It's still a little bit of feedback, but listen, we'll go with it, mate. Don't worry too much about it. It's the outdoor, it's the outdoor broadcast, I think, that's causing the issue. But I wouldn't begrudge you that, sitting in that kind of heat, whilst I'm freezing me napper off over here. And yes, I have had a shave. I noticed everyone in the chat, 2 boiled eggs on the screen, me and Stu. Thanks very much for that. Chipper says, is Bruno the best midfielder Newcastle have ever had? I think so, lads. He's got big boots to follow in my time. I've got to be perfectly honest, because Rob Lee and Gary Speed for me were the two legends in that centre midfield. We didn't see the best of Gaza, although he went on to be world class, the best player in the world in 1990. We didn't see the best of Gaza. It was very early days for him there, but honestly. The sight of Gary Speed coming in at the back post for one of those trademark headers, or Rob Lee surging through, beating 4 or 5 players and putting it into the bottom of the onion bag for me, like the take's unbeaten. But I've got to be honest, Stu, I sat there with War Rob yesterday, and it felt like the entertainers' days. And I'm not just talking about the War Flags display and how great it was pre-match, but it was a 2-0. I was sitting there. I wasn't worried, and even when they got the penalty, Ivan Toney, brilliant penalty by the way. It's no wonder that they haven't missed a penalty in 3 years with penalty taker like that. But you know what? It was just you were sitting back. There's a guy who sits next to us called Dave. Sitting back, weren't worried. And even if Brentford scored, you just knew that Newcastle would probably go up the other end, and they did with that wonderful Bruno finish. And it is good. But getting back to Chippers' question, I mean, he's got potential, hasn't he, to be the best midfielder, I think.
Well, I said at the top of the show there that he's probably our best midfielder since Gaza. What Gaza did, he was more of a maverick, but he could literally drag a team to victory with the way he played. But you're right, we didn't see the best of him. Unfortunately, we sold him too early, but he was a world-class talent for us. The two that you mentioned there, Rob Lee and Gary Speed, superb players, fantastic servants, and they had longevity. And I think that's the only thing that puts Bruno behind him at the moment. He hasn't done a full season with us yet, but he's genuine and he loves the club. You can see he loves the area. He's bought into it, and I think he'll be here for as long as he wants. For as long as we want him to be here. And it's a perfect marriage. And Bruno. He can be the best, and as we've talked about, we'll only add players to complement him as well, and that's where the Gary Speeds and Rob Lees shine, because they had quality all around them as well, where they were given a bit more freedom, especially Robbie Lee in these first few years. As you see him cutting through the defences and arriving late with an early finish, and that was a Rob Lee yesterday he scored, wasn't it?
It was.
The keeper expects the shot, he can't prepare himself properly. It's a joy to watch. It's such a feel-good factor. Even watching it on TV, I've got a client who's a good friend of mine. He's over from Riyadh. He travelled over before I did this week, actually. And I was watching the football with him yesterday, and he had his black and white shirt on. And I've told him he has to come every week now. We'll win 5-1. He's say, okay, I fly over. So it's just we're creating a new fan base. And when they're playing like that, it did have the feel of the entertainers, didn't it? Even at 2-1, you're sitting relaxed going, sorry, we'll get another one here. There's so much confidence oozing through the team. And that comes from right at the back, the full display of the team. And if you look at Callum Wilson yesterday, that was probably one of his most ineffective games for us. And it didn't matter, we still scored 5. And that's where everyone knows their role. And you've got to praise Eddie Howe again and his coaching staff. Everyone knows their role, they're well drilled, they know exactly what to be doing. So there's a lot of work goes in behind the scenes to make the players more aware, and to get the best out of their talents. And even I read earlier in the week, people have been complaining that we had more corners than any other team in the league and we weren't scoring from them. Well, if you look at yesterday, it was a great rehearsal, wasn't it? The way they tripped you across the ball for Bruno. And again, the way Bruno was, you could see if you watch the replay, he was on the edge of the box, standing next to a player. And as the ball went out, he just started drifting backwards. And he found himself in that space. And there's not many better in the league that can deliver a ball like Trippier if you want to pinpoint. And it was. And you could see the way Tyndall and Eddie Howe were embraced each other. It was like, yeah, you got it right. So things are paying off for them. And I'm really looking forward to next week going to Old Trafford. Well, I'm not going to Old Trafford, but Newcastle are. And I'm sure people know, Mitch will be in Bahrain watching us with it. And I've already put my 3-1 bet on to go for Newcastle. And the odds at the moment were only 28-1. Now, go back 2 years, 3 years, and over the last 15 years, those odds have been 66 or 100-1. So that tells you even the bookings go. That Newcastle are coming. It's just amazing, isn't it?
It is. You mentioned Trippier, actually. It was another thing on Match of the Day. I just took a note of that before we came on air. I watched it this morning. Premier League chances created from set players. Kieran Trippier tops the bill with 11. So, you know, that's some going when you think about how poor Newcastle have been in the last 14 years with set pieces. But we're talking Bruno, Mitch. 2 goals yesterday. We were told before he signed for Newcastle he couldn't head a ball. Well, that's 2-headed goals for Bruno as a Newcastle United player. But Stu's just touched on it there. It was a Rob Lee-esque finish into the bottom corner, which at the time was an important goal because Ivan Toney had just pulled that penalty back 2-1. Previous years, Newcastle could have, had the jitters. There would have been a nervous feeling around the ground, but Newcastle pressed. And a great finish from Bruno.
Bruno definitely has the opportunity to be the most complete midfielder we've ever had. And I'll tell you why I say that, because we're talking about Rob Lee, brought in by Keegan really essentially as a wide man. And then in his time in that side, developed and grew and moved inside and became a complete midfielder. With Bruno, we've already got the complete package. He's starting in our 11 as the complete package, not coming in as somebody to develop and grow. And that makes you think, well, if Howe can develop and grow, what the hell is he going to develop into? The guy has everything, can do everything, does everything with a smile on his face, seems to be loved by everybody and loves to be there. You hear Howe's words on him about how he's an energizer, a positive person, somebody he's got a delight to have in the dressing room. There is absolutely no limit on what that kid can do for us and with us going forward, I think that's the difference. He's already a complete footballer. Now, let's see what he can grow and become. You know, he comes across as one of these sort of natural leaders. He doesn't need to have the captain armband on. He's somebody who can lead by example and back up the captains and back up the more vocal leaders in the dressing room just by example. And that's it. It's rare that I feel so comfortable when we concede. Everybody that we were watching, I put a little video for the turnout in Dubai yesterday, which was cracking again, by the way. It's really... and I've got to give a shout out to Carly and to Julie and to Neil who put everything together down the Midfield bar. It makes it easy for me to direct traffic there and get people down there. It's a piece of cake now. And it's a great atmosphere. And, there wasn't a nervous person in the room when that penalty went in. There wasn't a nervous person in the room when that went to 2-1. We knew we're going to be all right. We've got this. We've got this. And I can't remember the last time I felt like that. I really, really can't remember the last time I felt like this. But going back to Bruno, yeah, for me, he's already the complete footballer. It's scary to think what he could now become, and he's ours.
Yeah, he is, and that's the exciting thing, and you're just going to get better. For me, I think ultimately, we talked about this a little bit on the Amigos the other night, and Roger Cook says, Steve, Mitch, Stu, do you think you'll get someone of equal gravy to Bruno in January? Maddison, perhaps. We spoke about it on Friday, Stu, and I'm sure you probably had time to catch up with the show. But look, for me, I think we all agree that there will be another marquee signing come January. Newcastle will probably go all out to bring a big name player in just to bolster their chances, perhaps, of getting into Europe. at the first time of asking under the new ownership.
Yeah, you need people to compliment Bruno to keep him there. I mean, as much as he's loving it, if we don't get Europe this season or next, you couldn't blame him for wanting to go elsewhere. The press is something that it's simple, isn't it? You learn that in school. Like push, make them make mistakes, but he seems to be the catalyst for it. And I'm gonna go for a hat trick of. It might shock some people, but for the third week in a row, I'm going to agree with Ben Jacobs regarding Maddison. Because he's had a bad press, and it's simply because he went to a casino when he was meant to be on England duty or something, and he seems to be bearing the brunt for that. But if you listen to Eddie Howe yesterday, he was praising Bruno as a person, not just as a player, and it's quite clear that the club do the research on the type of character that they're bringing in, and the way that Ben Jacobs was talking about. Maddison, I genuinely believe the club will go for him, and I'm more than sure he's interested. And if we're there or thereabouts for European qualification come January, which I expect us to be, it's a bigger pull, and you don't want to keep a player that's unhappy. And if they don't get him, I'm sure they'll have a plan B or C or even D. For sure, we'll have a star name added in January, but it'll be a player that they've looked at. It won't be he's had a good World Cup, let's sign him, because that's the easiest mistake you can make. People play well in the 1-2 a bit, and all of a sudden, it's got flop written all over it. They'll have players scouted already, and some of them might be at the World Cup, some might not. But it'll be a great opportunity to get someone in with Bruno. Yeah, you can't stop smiling when you think about where this club's going to go, and what we can achieve, and more realistic what we will achieve. But to me, yeah, January, I really can see Maddison coming to us. Really can. And regarding my going out shirt, I'm actually at work, so I've took my tie off and my suit jacket off, and it's my shirt for work. So unfortunately, it's not my drinking shirt from last night. I wish it was. I wish I'd still been out, but I wasn't. I had to go home early last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big name signing, Mitch. We did touch on it, didn't we? And Maddison is definitely the one that everyone's looking at. A defeat again for Leicester yesterday. Brendan Rodgers probably hanging on by his fingertips now after losing to Bournemouth. And I guess it depends on who goes in there and who has the what kind of effect the new manager has, and whether they can persuade Maddison to stay, or maybe his mind's already made up.
Well, Leicester are a club who, in spite of selling Fofana for a significant fee to Chelsea, still need to balance the books from an FFP perspective as well. They still need sales. And they've got a manager who's hanging on by his toenails. I believe the grapevine I'm hearing out here and from certain connections in football is that Leicester are quietly up for sale as well. That the family who own them feel like they've done everything they wanted with it now, and they would quite gladly let somebody take it off their hands. But they're not making a big song and dance about it. And so, in that case, the sales again become important in terms of, well, if we can get the books balanced and we can get a better price for the club, then we're in a position in January to possibly flex a little bit of muscle with them. My other feeling about January, this is an unusual January window because of the position of the World Cup. It's almost like a season of two halves. And so it's not like a normal January. And the final thing as well, anybody who tells you that we've got set and defined budgets for each window really genuinely is either making it up as they go along, or they're deliberately misreading certain comments and certain figures that have been chucked. Because I think if the deal's right for the right player at the right time, that deal will be done, even if it blows the budget for that window. They'll rejig it for the next window. I think that's the attitude they'll take, because nobody knows better than Saudi Arabians to speculate to accumulate.
Yeah, 100%, mate. You're right there. Well, look, it's an exciting thing to look forward to, but we've still got plenty of games to play. And John, you made a good comment as well, just saying essentially that getting the points on the table is on points on the board is the most important thing. Something to consider. We only play 8 more Premier League games before January window opens. If we can stay around the top 6, that gives us a great platform for January signings. 100%, it does. And there's a good chance that we can do that. Ian Toon Trader, good morning. He says, do you think that a class technical number 6 who's a ball winner with pace and passing will be a better move, so we can keep Bruno more advanced than spending 60 million on another number 8 now? And he also says, what do you think we can keep Bruno on the pitch? We are capable of a top 6 this year. So 2 questions there in one, Stu. What's your thoughts on what Ian says?
Yes and no. Everyone who's watched the shows over the last year or so, I was a huge admirer of Calvin Phillips, and I thought he would have complemented Bruno perfectly, giving Bruno that bit more feel to go forward. But he's went elsewhere. He's already set the world alight either, has he? So he's not playing much at all at Manchester City. So that might have been a regret for him. But I think with Bruno, the way the midfield is, he's got his Robocop pal to come back to full fitness as well, Joelinton. And if you've got them two there with Maddison in a more advanced role, they can interchange anyway. And thankfully, Eddie Howe's front foot mags will be going forward more than usual. And we've got defenders that are capable of defending. So I don't think we need to be sitting back and be more defensive. We seem to be a more offensive team now. And that's going to continue. We're not going to get worse. We're only going to get better. So as much as I wanted Calvin Phillips to complement Bruno, I think maybe someone else to create that bit spark further forward, like Maddison, to open up the defence, just that extra pass that can make the difference. And it looks like we've finally got a tune out with Miggy. He's performing like we've all hoped he would, how he's threatened to perform. The only thing with Miggy, similar to ASM, is he's going to cut in, and defenders as soon latch onto that. He's going to come in on his left foot. And we've talked about in the past when ASM has his best games is when he goes both ways and he hits the byline or he cuts inside. And that's something if Almirón does that, we've got probably saved ourselves 40 or 50 million quid in a transfer window by having to buy a right forward. He can fulfil the role there, and that means the budget, if there is such a thing, the focus will be more on the attacking midfield role, someone that Willock can learn from and replace as part of the squad. But as I've said many times, what happens is you bring better players in the squad, it pushes up. If you add to the top, it's the bottom that falls out. And that means we're only going to get better. So I know I went out on a limb and said we'd finish 5th this season when I asked for predictions at the start, but I'm still confident we can. And now we've got VAR on our side as well, haven't we? So it's working quite well.
New signing.
I'm just looking at Mitch T-shirt, only one letter, but if you remember, Eddie Howe says that the club wrote a letter regarding the dodgy decisions. So it seems like it's coming in our favour. But actually, they're only making the correct calls. But that's all we've asked for is like just be transparent and honest. But now when we expect things to go against us, because I reckon at the start of this season, that Brentford first goal wouldn't have been allowed. And it shouldn't have been allowed. So thankfully it got disallowed. But we seem to be getting a fair crack at the whip now.
The Tories keep talking about levelling up. They never seem to achieve it, but VAR is definitely levelling up for Newcastle because we were robbed at the start of the season. But we're not going to criticise it. It's doing okay at the minute. Commiserations to Club Alang, who's a regular on a Sunday morning show. He says, I dumped my girlfriend several years ago. She wouldn't stop counting. I sometimes wonder what she's up to now.
God.
Thanks, Clubber.
Good job we're ahead here. Like, this phone's might go off soon, so I might have to swap phones again. I still haven't got fixed as in there. But when it goes off, I'll swap over.
No worries, mate. No worries. Mitch, just the thoughts on a midfielder. Different type of midfielder, maybe. I mean, a lot of people as well. I've seen this comment countless times over the last 5 or 6 weeks. We need like a David Batty, a spoiler, someone who's going to get stuck in the midfield.
I don't think we do. I think that's construing it with very set concepts. The 6 and an 8, and I don't think Howe views it in that way. I think that midfield 3 is a unit. the work and a change and to do different things. Willock's taking a bit of stick, but actually, if you look at the amount of graft he gets through, he's becoming a better player. He's becoming an more round player. He just isn't scoring the goals he was scoring, but he's doing a hell of a lot more for the team, and I think he started every bloody game. And if you look at that midfield yesterday, Willock, Bruno, and Longstaff, there's not really anybody you would say is this one to sit deep. There's not really one that you would say would go forward, etc., etc. So for me, I think that it's limiting ourselves by saying we need a defensive midfielder, or we need this or we need that. And the way we play, I would suggest that Howe views it very much as a midfield unit, and everybody contributes and everybody works their way through it. It's quite clear though, when Bruno isn't on the pitch, we're missing something. And so when he wasn't there, there was an X factor missing. And so maybe what we need is somebody who can drop in and complement that unit that gives you a double dose of the X factor. So if Bruno is out or the other one is out, then we've still got somebody who can do that mystical bit, that magic that he provides. But I think we're very much constraining ourselves, sticking to conceptual ideas about what type of midfielder we need. I think we need somebody who complements the group of the unit, and that's a different thing.
Yeah, it is. Morning, Gerard. Good to see you back on, mate. He says, morning, Steve, Stu, and Miss. 5th in the league and a plus goal difference. Who would have thought that over a year ago? How are the lads? Yeah, listen, Gerard, it's amazing, mate. Club is literally taken off Stu's away already. That was quite funny, that, because you look like an astronaut getting ready to fly off the space. Oh, Stu, you went sideways and you froze. It was funny. Anyway, great stuff. As you know, on the other shows, we do like to have little sections to break the show up from the chat. We've come up with a new one. Anybody know, without Googling it, lads, which football team Mike Tyson supports? Mitch, Stu?
Is it a serious question, or is it one of these?
No, it's a serious question.
Ooh. Was he not taken to West Ham by somebody at some stage?
Okay, West Ham's your go. Stu?
I'll get Arsenal.
Arsenal. Okay, here's the new section for a Sunday morning.
Cool. Class act, buddy.
Mike Tyson in soccer tops. Yep, soccer. We're going to get taken over by Americans who I thought would come up with something bizarre for a Sunday morning. And this week, Mike is supporting Wolves. Yes, Mike Tyson in a Wolves top. So he's clearly a Wolves fan. Or is he? Find out next week on the new section.
Cool. Class act, buddy.
And if you've got photographs of Mike Tyson in a football top, a soccer top, send it over. I have got about 25 to get through. So, I'm not quite sure who he supports yet. Anybody know? We'll do that each week, yeah, whoever he wants to, exactly. Davy Brewers says, I'd like to mention Joe Willock. People seem to think he is some sort of weak link in our midfield. He just needs a goal. You can see he's desperate for one. I've got to be honest, Joe Willock does do a hell of a lot of work. And Jonathan Davis has also said he's been excellent lately. So the need to get another one in is less urgent. If we get Maddison in, he needs to become part of the midfield unit. There are no individuals anymore. And that's a great point as well. So look, with Joe Willock, he does do a lot of the unseen dirty work. And Eddie Howe pinpointed a Mitch in his press conference on Friday by saying that they've been working quite a lot with him to be able to get the end product. You know, he's happy with his game. That's why he's getting selected. But ultimately, he just needs to improve his goal scoring ratio. And he was frustrated yesterday. He had a chance which, just didn't come off. But as Blue Rhythm Boy says, Willock's overall game's improved and how clearly trusts him.
And again, against Fulham, his header was going in until Wilson made sure it went in. But that's what every number 9 should be doing. You know, no standing around waiting for it and maybe's not going off the post, sticking in the back of the net, and let's talk about it afterwards. And he went out of his way to name check Willock on his social media after the game last week. And I think that was part of giving Willock the boost to say, hey, thanks, kid. You know, he, like I just said, he gets through a hell of an amount of graft, and anybody who's criticising him genuinely isn't watching the game. They're not seeing what he's doing off the ball. And this goes back to the end of last season. That header that Bruno scored against Leicester was because of Willock's graft and running the length of the bloody pitch. You know, and so these are things that it's very interesting to hear how speak as we see certain things develop in players. Like Miggy's another one. 2 weeks ago, he was talking about how he'd been working on his give and go, and that he often gave and then didn't go. And he was working on Miggy's, 1-2 touch. And now, look, he's getting goals from that and getting shots off with that. Now I hear, and yeah, we've been working on his all-round game, and he would love him to get a goal just to put the icing on the cake. This is what Howe's doing with them. He's bringing them all on in different ways. And I think, yeah, he's only missing a goal to say, yeah, he's put such a level of graft in. He deserves that. But certainly now, to hear people properly talking about him, I think that'll be a boost for his confidence too, because I think he is a confidence player. I think that's why when he got on that run where he scored goals and scored goals and scored goals, was because he was high on confidence. And so I think he's just got to keep plugging away and going. It'll come together. There's no doubt about that. He's not a rubbish footballer. In fact, I think he's a far better footballer than the one that we initially had known from Arsenal. And he can only develop.
Yeah. What's your take on Willock? Lots of praise coming in the chat for him, Stu.
Yeah, he's worthy of the praise, but so is every other player that's playing for the team. And that's why he's in the team, because he's playing well. He does cover. He's a great ball carrier. And that's something I've known for a while. He's confident and capable of running 30 yards, 40 yards with the ball at his feet. And if you're a defender, you've got someone running the ball, you don't know which way to turn. And you've got Miggy one way, at the minute it's Jake Murphy the other, and it creates doubt in the defender's mind. So he might not get the goals, but his role is different to what it was. He was an impact sub. His energy is great. I think for most of the games we've had in the last 6 months, he's the one that still had the legs in the last 10 minutes or so. But there's a thing I keep saying is about sentiment. It's maybe it's a Newcastle thing, but I'm sure that other clubs do. The fans do the same as well. There has to be a scapegoat. I don't understand why, but there has to be a scapegoat somehow. And if Joe Willock's our scapegoat, then we're in a very, very good place. But using the word sentiment that Mitch and myself have mentioned for many, many times, if it was a straight choice between Maddison or Willock in that role, who would you choose? And I think if we all had to just be honest with it, I would imagine the majority would pick Maddison. But that's not a slight on Willock, and his game's improving. That's what I talked about just earlier. But it's saying if he's in the squad, he's learning from better players. If that's the sort of talent you've got coming off the bench, that's how good's your bench. I think in the Premier League now, you're as good as what your bench is. And that's what we're looking to improve by. If we're bringing star players in, these type of players will be on the bench. And it makes for a better club. But does he deserve to be dropped? No. Does he deserve his position? Yes. But if we go back to, as there has been many comparisons to the Keegan age and the sentiment, Lee Clark was man of the match 3 games out of 4, and he got dropped on the same David Batty. Now, can anyone tell me that David Batty wasn't a good player? I think signing him cost us the league. I really do, because if it kept it with Clark, he passed the ball forward. I think we would have won the league that year. But Batty was a great servant for us. He played his role to perfection. But that doesn't mean Clark wasn't a great player. He was. And then he had to adapt and become a substitute and be used elsewhere. So to me, it's got a similar feel to that. That's with Willock becoming Lee Clark and a Maddison type player becoming the replacement, like the Bally style. Not in the same positions, obviously, but that's what I'm saying. We need to be advancing. We can't be too sentimental and be nice to all the. We like everyone. It's great that everyone's busting a gut for us. But for years, we've busted a gut for them. So it's they're buying into the ethics that Eddie Howe wants, and every one of them is improving as a player and as a person as well, not just as a player, as a person. Willock, for me, he does his job. He will score goals, but at the moment, if he has to sit while Bruno's going forward, let it continue. And if he gets replaced by a better player, we all benefit as fans. But again, it's not a slight on Joe Willock, because I think he does a lot of unseen work as well.
Yeah, big shout out to the woman behind Mitch putting her washing out. I'm just glad she wasn't putting her bloomers out. She's making an appearance. A lot of people in the chat talking about Stephen's one of them. Miggy is a different player when Bruno's playing. On Willock, he is class. He works hard, covered the ground so well. He's coming, hopefully, the winner versus United. How good would that be? And what was the other point that was made earlier? Yeah, Shredder says, in my opinion, Bruno's played a big part on Miggy's transformation too. So yeah, Miggy Almirón, I mean, again, you know, I mentioned this to Malcolm. You'll be able to see Malcolm's views on the match coming up a little bit later, and he's talking from the Dog and Parrot. But, you know, Miggy's had a bit of criticism. He runs around, he does nothing, he smiles a lot. But in the grand scheme of things, we're getting an end game now from Miggy Almirón. Another goal yesterday, Mitch. And you know, some great work. He you know, he's part of the reason that the high press is working so well, because he's forcing teams back.
Well, look, there's no doubt in my mind that Miggy's a better player when he's got Bruno on the side. It's quite clear that they have a connection, and it's obviously that South American mentality that they want to play the little short give and goes, and they want to, you know. But I think he takes up better positions when Bruno's on the side as well. Or is it that Bruno's got the nous to find him with the outlet ball? Or they just seem to have this synergy. And as I was saying before there, you know, Howe was talking about how he'd worked on his give and go. Howe would talk about he worked on a few other things. And now, yesterday, I mean, that shot he had, could easily have been the opening goal. Good save from the keeper, actually. And it's not that long ago. I wouldn't have foresaw him doing that. He wouldn't have taken the shot on. He would have ran into a blind alley and then fell over and lost the ball. Or, you know, there's.
Oh, we've lost him. He's gone. He's gone. Go on, Stu. Take up the gun while Mitch gets his gets his connection back. Oh, he's back there, Mitch. Go on, continue, Mitch. We lost you.
Sorry, there was a phone call came in on the phone.
I know.
We just don't have to. We're seeing a very different player, and the player we knew was in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, Stu, your views.
Yeah, Bruno does bring the best out of him, and they obviously have a connection where or a link up or an understanding. But Bruno brings the best out of a lot of players. I think Longstaff plays much better when he's got Bruno next to him. It's just like reassurance, isn't it? And I talked about it last week. The weight of pass that Bruno gives is always in the favour of the receiving player, you know, and he can take the ball comfortably, and he's got the vision. There was a bit of skill he did yesterday, didn't he? When the player come charging in, he just flicked it around him and then span round and took it away. You know, these are the sort of things that Bruno does, and that inspires players around him. You know, if you're playing with someone excellent, you raise your game anyway, but you're also good. And because he's so modest, Bruno, you know, he is a team player. With people like Sean Longstaff, he's come on leaps and bounds this season alone. He's getting back, he's actually not getting back to the player he initially was. He's actually starting to fulfil the promise we thought he could do. And again, if you look at Longstaff and then Willock, no slight on them at all. But if we're going to be challenging for Champions League places in the coming seasons, would they be starters? No, but they'd be fantastic to bring off the bench, and you feel comfortable doing so. You know, and that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, okay. Lots of comments coming in. I'm going to try and get to most of them. Only got 20 minutes left. Don't forget as well, I'll often do like a live Q&A. I'm going to come back on 6:30 tonight and do one of those chats and taking your questions. If anybody wants to come on, set the reminder. It's up there now, 6:30 tonight. Okay, I'm going to try and combine a couple of these. ASM says Shredder, decision making has definitely improved. The ball he played for J7 to set up the 5th goal is the 2nd time he has done that this season. Definitely agree on that. Now, where was it? There we go. What do you guys think of Byrne at left back? For me, he was shaky yesterday. Being linked with Luke Shaw this morning and some of the Sunday papers of how doesn't trust Target. We'll have to improve that area. Now I'm going to combine that with the talk about other players as well, getting back into the team. Blue Rhythm Boy says, do you think ASM struggles to get back in ahead of Miggy and Murphy now? And Tom says, just a thought, do you think Eddie's playing Byrne at left back to save Target because he can play right back as cover for Trippier? Interesting thoughts. Combine them all, Mitch, if you can. I mean, Dan Byrne, again, you know, at left back, it was an unchanged team. I've got to be honest, I personally thought Eddie would have made a couple of changes. Roger, one of our moderators who's in the chat, who I go for a drink with before the game, he was convinced it would be unchanged because of the result at Fulham. He was right. But yeah, it was interesting yesterday. The big interesting thing that happened was that Trippier went off and Target came on, which probably prompts the question that Tom's asking there. But yeah, I mean, just the left back situation, first of all, Mitch, and then secondly, players getting back into the team. It was good to see a bit of strength and depth yesterday. Bruno going off, ASM coming on, and it's competition for places. It's healthy.
Absolutely, and it makes a statement that nobody's guaranteed a place in the side. And that to get into that side, you've got to put the graft in day out on the training ground. And if you do that, you get your reward. I think how we'll change the team in the horses for courses way. And Fulham and Brentford set up in a similar fashion. They have a big, strong centre forward that they play everything through and off, and therefore having Byrne at left full back adds a little bit of height and weight in the back line to cope with that situation. You don't have a weak spot where the striker can peel off and play off of the smaller full back and make hay down the channels. I think that's what the thinking behind that is. I think Target will be back on the side next week at Man U because I think they set them different and play different. Squad rotation is now part of the game and people aren't guaranteed that place. Come to ASM, that ball that he's playing, again, what was Howe talking about maybe towards the end of last season about ASM? He wanted to play with his head up, not his head down. And that's the sign, that kind of the sign of a player who was aware about what's going on around him. He's playing up, not with his head down. And I think, again, that comes from the effort put in on the training ground. Yes, everybody's had their criticisms of ASM at one stage or another. But my understanding is the one person who he seems to really listen to is Trippier. And Trippier's the key to getting some of them back online and back on side and waking up with what potential that they have. And that was an ASM playing with his head up. Exactly what Howe was talking about towards the end of last season that he needed to see more of. And surprise, surprise, we're talking again about end product from the wide players. We weren't getting it, now we're getting it in spades. And so there's positive changes happening, and I think all of this exchange and interaction means we don't have to rush ASM back from injury. If there's been a doubt over his hamstring or his calf, we don't have to take that 80-20 chance that he might do it again. We can ease him back in. The way he's been able to ease Bruno back in. And we were saying today about Bruno giving him a shout when he'd run out of steam, when he sort of done his all. And that's exactly what he did, and that allowed him to take him off at the right time, and it means we're protecting him from further injury. That's smart. Again, something we've not done right for years at Newcastle United. Our management of soft tissue injuries in particular has been nothing short of horrendous. You know, you can guarantee we get somebody out with a hamstring, it's never a 2-week thing, it's always a 6 to 12. You know, and we manage them badly. And how many times have we brought players back far too quickly and then they've done themselves again and we lose them again? This again, where it comes back to Stu's point earlier about you're only as strong as your bench. When you've got a stronger bench like that and you've got faith in the people coming off the bench, you don't have to take risks. You can play horses for courses. You can chop and change. Everybody knows the system, and I think this is why he's rigid in his system and you don't see different systems. Because once somebody slots into that system, you know what their role is. And that means you can pick any one of those players off the bench and drop them into the team and they know what they've got to do. It's pretty easy. It makes it simple. And sometimes that's when football's at its best, is when it is simple.
Very true. Very, very true. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I mean, Isak's another one. I mean, he's going to be fit, you would imagine, either next week or the week after. Stu, it was only a muscle injury that he had, and we're expecting to see him back in contention. But yeah, it's great problems to have. John Joe Shelby, he's returning. I mean, we could be in this situation just before the World Cup starts. We've got a full squad.
Yeah, it's amazing, but I know we're all against the Americanization of sport, but one of the banners that their fans use stateside is in someone we trust, and we have to say in Eddie we trust. He's done a copy-paste of the Man City system, so everyone knows the role, everyone knows what's to be done. And we went to Fulham when we played Manchester City. So it's great that we can bring players like ASM and Joelinton off the bench, but yes, there would be most people starting 11, and they probably will return to the starting 11. But Eddie Howe does exactly what Mitch was saying there. You graft. He's mentioned in his press conferences. You graft. You get your place in the team. Once you're in the team, your job's to stay in it because there's people chomping at the bit to get in. And as supporters, it's great for us because we can sit back and relax, knowing that whoever goes on that pitch for us will give their all and they're capable of doing so. They know their role, they'll do it to the best of their ability, and that's all we've ever asked for. And it really is. Now we can be like Oliver and ask for more, and yes, we now want trophies, we now want better players, but the owners want better players as well. And touching on ASM yesterday, he did something and it made me smile. And I pointed out to the gentleman I was watching the football with, was he skinned someone and then went past another. And so often in the past, that would just be a mazy run that would go across the middle of the park and petter out. And it was as if something like alerted him in his head, because he wants to have the end product where it's fantastic, it's amazing, he gets all the plaudits. But he simply just freeze and then okay, I'll pass now. It must have been something that's been mentioned, been training, like you've done this, find a player in space. And he knocked a very simple ball 15 yards across the Longstaff. And that allowed us to keep the momentum going and keep going forward. So that's the education that's happening of all the players, where even the most flamboyant ones are buying into what needs the greater good. They're all contributing to the greater good now. And it's great that he can still skin people, but he's not going to try and beat 4 if he can beat 2 and pass the ball and we retain it. He's now understanding that that's better for the team, and it's also better for him, because then players in the team will have more trust and give him the ball when he needs it in the spaces that he wants it. And again, for us watching it, us supporting it, it's gonna only improve our league position. We've got players now who are we can still get more out of every player, but as a unit, it's amazing to watch. It's humbling watching how they've grown in the last year, and the confidence and the trust they've got each other. So you mentioned there Botman's class. I genuinely haven't seen a better centre half in the league this year. He's so comfortable with the ball. He wins the headers, and again, he's got Shaw next to him. They seem to be getting on extremely well, and they're both ball players. So that's why we don't need that defensive midfielder now. When I was banging on about Calvin Phillips, they've got either centre half can come out and play the pass. They've got the field in front of them. They know they can see it, and you'll always have someone like Bruno finding space, and he's like got a 360-degree head, hasn't he? He knows instantly where to pass the ball to. So one of the questions that we're asked to cover there was Dan Burn left back, and is he keeping Target for the right back? Well, that doesn't really follow, because you could play Target left back and then put him right back if Trippier went off and put Dan Burn on at left back. Anyhow, is unfortunately for Target, he was injured, and Dan Burn hasn't put a foot wrong, so it's his place to lose. And it is a squad game. We don't have like 5 or 6 good players now, and then we're worried about who fills the gaps in. We've got a squad of at least 18 top players, and if we can keep adding that up, keep adding to it, as I say, I honestly believe we'll qualify for Europe this year.
Lots of people starting to come around to your way of thinking, Stu. There's no doubt about that. Shredder says, I read before the game, Botman hasn't lost a single aerial duel. I wonder if that's still true. After yesterday, he bullied Tony with ease. Blue Rhythm Boys says, close call between Trippier and Bruno for world's best player. And Johnny V, good morning. He says, I'm late again, but how are the lads? from a caravan in Cornwall. I hope the caravan's nice and warm, mate. Hope you've got your heating on. Club Alan with some breaking news. He says the World Tongue Twister champion's been arrested this morning. Yeah, they're going to give him a really hard sentence. Cheers, Club, for keeping us up to date with daily affairs. These kind of jokes, by the way, batter Mitch's head after he's had a session on a Saturday night. I'm telling you now. Morning, lads. On a different note, do you fancy our chances against United next Sunday? Says Stephen. I think I'm always filled with trepidation with a trip to Old Trafford. We always seem to score early and then, we end up caving in. But Stu has put 3-1 on, and the odds, as you mentioned earlier, are a lot more favourable than normal. Yeah, I mean, we'll leave it until Wednesday for you, Stu, for your prediction, and we'll come to the Amigos on Friday for ours. But I think there's a lot more confidence going into that. Roger says, do you think that Longstaff has definitely improved without Shelvey? It's interesting this because Malcolm McDonald, Mitch, for many a season that these two have played together, has said that Shelvey doesn't do Longstaff any favours, and he felt as an ex-professional, and this is Malcolm's opinion, not mine, but he felt that it was almost deliberate at times that Shelvey didn't want to play alongside Longstaff, and he was selling them a few dud balls. I've always disagreed with that, I've got to be honest, but sometimes players just don't play well together. You know what I mean? They don't gel, and I think that was the case with those two. Longstaff seems to have come on in leaps and bounds since Steve Bruce left for me.
Because he was treated appallingly by Steve Bruce. If you talk about anybody who's interacted with anybody in the club behind the scenes, when the time that Bruce was there, the Longstaff brothers got the short end of the stick from Steve Bruce in a very childish and, frankly, in my opinion, ridiculous fashion. Coming back to Sean's development, what's helped Sean, and it comes back to the simplicity of this system, is he knows what his role is. His role is defined, and he knows what he is and what he needs to be. Sean was starting to fall between two stools. Was he a central midfielder, or was he more of a number 10? Because under Rafa, his best games seemed to come when he was pushed further up the pitch. And then Bruce came in and seemingly he didn't want to use him, didn't care. And so he's taken him nearly 2 years to almost redefine himself and work out what he's supposed to be. And reaping the reward of that he's having a little run in the side. I think this is the first time through this many games he's got more starts than he has sub-appearances, and I think that's significant. It shows how he trusts him, and he feels trusted, and he feels valued. And he's not really putting much of a foot wrong. And again, like Stu was saying, do we need this traditional holding midfielder to come out and then play the long balls? Well, no, because between the two centre-backs and Longstaff, that's all on the pitch in this system that we use. And it comes back that I think he wants those three midfielders to work as a unit, and he talks about a unit. He doesn't talk about individual roles in that unit. And I think that's something else that Sean Longstaff's benefiting from.
Yeah, Sean Longstaff certainly, always had the potential, Stu. I think we're all delighted to see a Geordie lad coming through, as we are with Elliot Anderson, of course. We all felt that, both Sean and Matty would have done well. But, I keep saying it and have to keep reminding people that he had a horrendous injury. And then, of course, playing in a team managed by Steve Bruce is never going to forward any young player's career, in my opinion. But he's relishing the opportunity. He's taking it by both hands. He's grafts there. I've got to be honest though, it's still that frustrating thing with Longstaff. He gave the ball, the first two touches he had, he gave the ball away in that opening 20 minutes. Newcastle weren't brilliant against Brentford yesterday. But after that, he bossed it. He did really well, and he played well alongside Bruno.
Yeah, I've said, well, I believe sports and sales are very similar because they're emotive, and people wouldn't, this is why I believe if you're successful in sales, because people will buy of people, and the same with sports. It's reward and recognition. That's what makes it worse. Makes it better for them. Sorry, and Sean Longstaff is getting his reward and his recognition for his hard work, but it's a confidence thing, and And it's like the best example I can give anyone, if you talk about confidence, was Alan Shearer, the way he was treated by Ruud Gullit. And then Bobby Robson's come out and said, I'm going to build this team around you. You are the best striker in the world. And he scores 5 on Sir Bobby's first game. You know, and was Shearer a bad player? No, but Gullit's made him start doubting himself, and you should never doubt your own ability. And if you had someone like Steve Bruce telling Longstaff, "Oh, you're not good enough for this team," he's going to start buying into it. I want a new contract. You know, you're not getting one. You know, you're the poorest paid player in the squad, and he was apparently vocal about that as well, which isn't a nice thing to do to anybody. So now he's had a fight, and he's winning the fight. He's got himself back into the squad, and I was on record at the start of the season saying he should go, you know, for his own sake, for his own career, and get game time. But he's forced his way into this team through injuries, etc. And if he starts next week at Manchester United, I don't think anyone's going to be too concerned. Whereas if that was this time last year, there would have been groans about it, you know, because he's a different animal now. He's comfortable, and as I said, the Bruno factor is important for him. He's playing next to someone who he can rely on. He's not someone who's going to ping a ball at him 20 miles an hour faster than he should, or 3 yards in front of him, or slightly behind him, so the passer looks good and the receiver doesn't. And I think that's what Malcolm was talking about regarding the Shelby thing. You know, he can do it in a way where, look, I passed to him. He's the one that made the mistake. Bruno passes to him at the right weight, at the right pace, at the right direction. And it's always better for the receiving player just to take the ball. And Sean's been good with the ball. He get it, yeah, he misses it a few times, he misses passes, but they all do. You know, but he's getting better with it, and his confidence will rise with that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go and change next week to give these players a boost, to say, look, you're performing, I'm not going to change it. And that's where it goes back to the house and on the training ground. The ones that were on the surface, on the bench, are going to have to perform even better to force their way back in. Now the shirt really is up for grabs. It's not. I think I would say only Bruno could walk straight into the team once he's fully fit. Every other position's up for grabs, and that includes Isaac. And I'm quite sure although he's on record signing, that doesn't give him, in the past it would have, but that doesn't give him carte blanche to say, right, I'm fit now, I'm playing. He has to prove that he can get it in that team. And if Wilson notches a brace next week, or dare I suggest a hat-trick, he's actually fit the week after. He's not going to drop Wilson. You know, so that's where we are at. And the advances that this club's made in 367 days now, 367 days now, it's astronomical. It really is. And this is why I was, earlier in the week, I was likening it to the changes in Saudi Arabia. What they've done in a decade, the Western world would take over a century to do. So just keep smiling and let everyone get salty with it. It's great.
It is 100%. Stu, are you free on Friday? Mr. Hasty is having a sabbatical on Friday night for the Three Amigos. So would you like to join us 4:30, 6:30? Are you available with Mitch?
Me and him have been drinking all day, by the way, so good luck to you on Friday.
Well, as long as you can join us with Mitch, that would be good.
Yeah, I'll do that. No problem.
Aye, magic.
Great, and we'll get Keith Patterson on as well, and Joe. So look forward to that. Don't forget, I'm back up at 6 tonight. I'm going to do a live Q&A. Anything goes, whatever you want to ask us, whatever you want to talk about. It's your platform as well. And then I'm back with a Monday Club with Joe Walker. Tomorrow, your chance to come on screen and have your say about Newcastle. Great stuff. Thanks to Stu. Thanks to Mitch. Thanks to everybody in the chat and the moderators. I'll play out with the ads. Take care, lads. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, everyone.
A big thanks to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead. Their phone number is 0191 478 2730. You can email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists based on Nunn Street. The GOHD.com is their website. And thanks again to 3 Property Investments, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give them a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to the lads at Mr. Vicky's Handmade in Cumbria. These are hot sauces, and you can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or place an order by ringing 01768 210 102. Thanks also to the lads at Blowhole Brewery, a fine amount of ales available from their website, www.blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the badge in the corner, and you can subscribe for free. Still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and the rest. And if you want to become a member, click join underneath this video, or you can put your smartphone over the QR code. It will take you to the membership section of the website. If you choose to go that way, then you will get a pen, a cup, a scarf, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw for a one-off payment of £25. We also give you something for free. If you want a car window sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will send you one if you are a subscriber. We also help the food bank on here. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the matchday bucket. If you go there, you can make a virtual donation at any time of the year. And don't forget, Peter Beardsley Soccer School, October half term, Monday the 24th to Friday the 28th of October. You can book now, peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com. Peter's also running Monday night training on the 26th of October. Again, the same website. And if you want to meet Peter Beardsley, well, you've got 3 chances. Newcastle Legends game, Friday, October the 14th. The Peter Beardsley talk-in is taking place after the game. Tickets for this are available from NUFCmatters.com. Adult admission is £5, junior admission is £2. The talk-in is adults only, and that is a tenner. And the events are all taking place at the Fox Hunters Pavilion in North Shields. We've got Peter Beardsley available, tickets available for the St Dom's Catholic Club show. You need to go straight to their website and you just buy your tickets there. And for this one at the Irish Centre, tickets are available now on NUFCmatters.com. Don't forget, Supermax at the Dog and Parrot, every pre-match and every post-match, every home game. And John Gibson and John Anderson are at Pumphrey's pre-match only. If you did like our true crime stuff, it has all migrated to the True Crime channel. So get yourself across there on YouTube and subscribe today.